At the President's Office for signature. When it comes into law, this could see thousands of deeply indebted South Africans getting some relief and some even getting their debts cancelled. To give us some insights into who will benefit from this bill and what it entails, I'm now joined by Priscilla Steele, who's an attorney at Fluxmans Attorneys. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
All right, so perhaps let's start at what inspired this amendment to the National Credit Act. What was the thinking?
Well, according to the Portfolio Committee of Trade and Industry, they found that a lot of your low-income consumers had no efficient options to remove themselves from their indebtedness. So they've come up with features in this new bill to assist with that. A new procedure, like one of the features is debt intervention. So it's to assist those who earn no income or up to 7,500 Rand a month.
Okay, so this isn't for everybody.
No.
This is really for the people that are really at the bottom rung of earnings and are crippled by this debt.
Yes.
So lenders might be thinking, hang on, you're writing off our debt. That's not fair.
No, it's not writing off all debt. Also, the writing off of debt is a last resort. There's an entire process to be followed. So, you'll file an application and go to the National Credit Regulator, who will assess and make recommendations to the tribunal. Those recommendations can be anything from a suspension of payments, rearrangement of the debt, and as a last resort,
right,
you can have your debt written off.
And I suppose when you're writing off debt, these lenders were probably never going to get that money anyway. That's how desperate those people are. So some people might say, hang on, but this is open to being abused. What are the safeguards to make sure that people don't try and get out of paying their debt using this process?
Well, firstly, not everyone qualifies for it. You have to fall within the parameters. And even while you're in this process of debt intervention, you can't enter into new agreements.
Right.
And the credit providers also can't enforce those agreements while you're in that process. And if you do end up having your debt extinguished, there's a period in which you cannot take up new credit.
Okay, so you can't keep on doing the cycle because then you'll
abuse.
say this is a way out.
Yes.
All right, so give us the figures again of people who qualify. So you've got to be earning less than 7,500 Rand a month as a starting point.
Yes, you have to be over indebted as well. And the total of your unsecured debt has to be no more than 50,000 Rand.
All right, so when you say unsecured debt, what are we talking about?
Your retail accounts, your personal loans, your credit cards.
All right, so you've got to be earning less than 7,500 Rand a month. You can't be owing more than 50,000 Rand.
In total of all the credit agreements.
And then even then, they start to look at your individual circumstances and they decide what intervention is required.
Yes, the credit regulator has to declare you over indebted.
That sounds like a lot and a lot of people. So do they have the capacity to deal with these
That's
issues?
a very good question. Because before, with the old act, well, the current act, you had debt counsellors handling this. So the question does come up of can the regulator and the tribunal handle all these applications?
So does that mean that the lenders are going to tighten the screws in terms of their lending to people? Because already they're kind of, especially the unsecured debt, it's almost you just need to put your ID number in, a pay slip, and you get credit online in 10 minutes.
Well, I agree. That's a possibility that credit providers now make it more difficult for those low-income consumers to get credit. But we don't know. We're going to have to see how it plays out.
Well, when you look at the amendment, in generality, is this a good or a bad thing? Is this an innovative move forward?
I think it is, especially with the other features. I'm interested to see how the debt intervention process goes through. But we've got new offences and penalties that also come through.
All right, tell us a little bit about those offences and penalties.
Well, the offences will relate to the actual debt intervention process and also to registration. So if you're not registered as a credit provider, it's an offence and you can be penalised for that. Also, the credit providers, who are companies, their directors can be held liable for any contravention of the Act.
How, if somebody is deeply indebted and they've got very little resources, do they go themselves to the credit regulator to get this assistance? Or I'm seeing people offering services to
no, they should attend, go to the credit provider, the credit regulator themselves. That's the whole point of this new system. It's free of charge for that specific consumer.
Right. Fantastic. Priscilla, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It certainly does seem that people need to think carefully about this intervention.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly not for everybody.
No.
All right. Thanks so much indeed for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And that's, we're going to leave it for the time.